good news, depending on your perspective, about the idea of Will Stein going to Penn State.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. I rewatched the Indiana game. More thoughts on Dante Moore, more thoughts on the defense on today's show, because both have to be better, even against Rutgers this week. But we start with Will Stein, who I don't think is generating massive buzz at the moment with relation to the Penn State coaching vacancy. His name has been tossed around, suggested, mentioned, listed a couple of times, and understandably so. I do not believe he is going to be a serious candidate. I don't. That is not because he just had a really bad Saturday, though. In this particular moment, I know it feels like that's a big reason why, but when you're evaluating whether or not you're going to hire someone to be the head coach of your program, you're not going to make your assessment one way or the other on one game. So Will Stein's body of work would be evaluated, but the reason that I don't believe, even though he's accomplished a lot at this point in time, if he does not get the Penn State job or even interview or be discussed as a serious candidate for it, I think it will come down to just who he is, not a lack of what he's done. He has a resume that is absolutely worthy of being hired as a head coach in college football. If Wisconsin moves on from Luke Fickell, we might be having this very same conversation, and that one could be a bit more feasible. The reason I don't think Penn State would do it is because of the gamble they've taken by moving on from a coach that has established a really high floor until this season with their program that costs a lot of money to pay to go away. Penn State is making a really big gamble. I think they want a known commodity, and you don't know what Will Stein is as a head coach. I think that is the biggest thing working against him from being a candidate for the Penn State job in a serious way. A name that I've talked about on Locked On College Football is Matt Rule. I think that is a very real possibility. There are some ties to the athletic department there, but if it's not him, I think it's going to be someone in that same vein that has been a head coach and has proven himself to be a winner at a program that is at least at a similar level to what Penn State is, or as close to it as you can get. I don't think they're going to take a risk, which it is at some level, not necessarily a big one, but I don't think they're going to take the risk of hiring a first-time head coach. Because if you move on, when you move on from James Franklin, as they have done, you have to get the hire right. This has to be, if I were Penn State, my first phone call would be to Curt Cignetti. I would make him tell me, no, that's not going to happen. The next phone call might be to Matt Rule at Nebraska, who's done a really good job. Now, there are other names that could get tossed around. Alex Golesh at South Florida is a name to know. John Sumrall at Tulane, maybe. Maybe those guys coaching the Group 5 ranks is a turnoff for Penn State. I don't know. Haven't talked to the athletic director about that decision. But I suspect that he feels the same sort of pressure on this hire. There's pressure on every hire. I think it is exaggerated because of the context of James Franklin's career. I don't think he goes out and hires a first-time head coach. Is Stein a popular name in the coaching world? Yes, of course. The way he recruits, the production on the field, both really good during his time with the Ducks. It wasn't on Saturday, but they're not going to just look at one particular game. So this doesn't mean Will Stein is locked in to be Oregon's offensive coordinator for 2026. Or even that he won't be more of a serious candidate to be Penn State's head coach than I believe he will be. That's just my read on it. Is I've seen him out there and I go, I don't think that is where Penn State's heads are going to be. Now, to some of you out there, hearing that is, oh darn, we can't get rid of him. I think to most of you, it's okay, good. Will Stein is sticking around right here and doesn't have the possibility of being distracted by that. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the coming months, but keep an eye on that one. I have not seen Tosh Luploy's name mentioned anywhere, but Stein, yeah, I definitely get it. Micah sent in this take for Spencer's scale of agreement. which if you're new here, you send me a take, and 1 to 10, I give you how much I agree with it and explain my reasoning. It's that simple. Micah says SSA, Penn State hires Will Stein as head coach, and we go out and get Chip back as our OC. Well, I don't think it's going swimmingly in Las Vegas, but it's year 1 for Chip and Pete Carroll, reliving the glory days of the Pac-10 there. What an incredible coaching staff that is. Like, can you imagine after that Halloween night in 2009 when Oregon just beat USC into oblivion 47-20 and ran for like 700 yards? If you'd said, one day these guys are going to be on the same staff in the NFL, I go, what? Who's going to be the head coach? Who's going to be the coordinator? Are they co-head coaches? I don't know. Wild. Anyway, Penn State hires Will Stein, and then we hired Chip. 1.5. 1.5. Chip went to the NFL, didn't work out, came back to college once before. It's technically possible. It's technically possible Stein could be hired as the head coach there. But yeah, that's a solid 1.5. I respect the ingenuity of the take, but 1.5. I also want to talk about the running backs to start today's show, because on Saturday, something that became apparent as I went back and watched the game is something that we have seen throughout the year, and DR Hill was not particularly effective. I think that was more about Indiana than Hill himself. I did think it was odd that there wasn't a desire to get DR Hill the ball more early in this game. However, Jordan Davison is going to be better than Jordan James, and I like Jordan James a lot. I was bullish on him. I remember seeing him run as a true freshman in those goal line packages and thinking, I feel like he can do more than that. And we saw he can be a number 1 guy. Darn good back. Davison is going to be better. He showed on Saturday that he's continuing to get more and more comfortable at the college level, and he's more than just a short yardage maestro. His build lets him succeed at that immediately. But going forward, I don't think the running back rotation needs to condense. I've seen this get talked about or suggested in a couple different spots. I don't think that you need to have, one bell cow workhorse sort of guy. Now, Jay Lamar ran pretty well in the touches that he got on Saturday, and Hill just really had nowhere to go when he got the ball. The plays were just not particularly well blocked. I don't think anything needs to change with the running back room. One of you had sent me a question before the Indiana game to assess the running back room and where things are at. And after a game in which Oregon ran the ball well, but the offense wasn't good, I think playing the hot hand, sometimes it's Davison, sometimes it's DR Hill, sometimes it's Noah Whittington, who I thought ran the ball well. He was bad in pass protection, no doubt about it. But I think a rotation of those 4 guys going forward, I'm okay with it. I don't think it's going to seriously condense. I think you come in with game plan, like I was talking about yesterday on the show. You come in with an idea of how you want to run the football and what you feel like is exploitable for the other defense. I wouldn't be surprised if DR Hill has a pretty big game this week against Rutgers. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter. All of that good stuff. Upon further review, Oregon's defense does have a lot to clean up. However, it was still on the offense. First, this episode brought to you by Mazda. Mazda makes cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. And at the end of the day, what are the 2 things you most need from a car? You want reliability and safety, maybe even in the other order. And Mazda makes sure they deliver on that front. And you can make everyday drives feel like anything but. From smooth handling to intuitive controls, Mazda's got you covered. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. And winter is right around the corner. You've got to be able to drive with confidence. Some of you live in places where it's going to snow, where it's going to hail, sleet, rain, all that sort of stuff. You want to be able to have that confidence. Mazda gives you just that. Like Oregon's players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. And this episode brought to you by our friends at Peloton. Peloton shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move. Whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors, this is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Whatever your fitness goals are, Peloton is here to help you reach them. They are trying to make you better, like Oregon's coaching staff is trying to make the Ducks a better roster. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. That's ONEPELOTON.com. Check them out at onepeloton.com. All right, as always, we've got our second segment sip. Let's talk about Oregon's defense. So, did they have their best game of the year against Indiana? Absolutely not. What was not as good of a performance as they had against Penn State, particularly when you consider that they were at home and off a bye. However, I do want to reiterate, after having gone back and watched the entire game again, Oregon's defense was not the problem on Saturday. This is why you can't just comb through box scores and understand everything about a college football game, because you might look up and go, wow, 30 points allowed at home. Not good for Oregon's defense. Yeah, not the problem. Not the problem whatsoever. So a couple of thoughts, because I am going to go into what I did see as being problematic in this game. Elijah Surratt is really good. I actually thought Oregon had plenty of moments where they defended him well. Terry McCauley, who is a longtime referee, I don't know why, but he just came across the Indiana go-ahead touchdown and said what I said at the time, which is it was offensive pass interference. So, and this is not the refs robbed Oregon. Like, no, I just think there was pass interference that wasn't called on Surratt by Brandon Finney earlier in the game, certainly, but I really don't think that Oregon's defense played poorly in this game. And I think a couple of the numbers, Mendoza had a first down scramble that was aided by a hold. And I didn't think that they were getting gashed. Indiana had to work for it. They went up and down the field, but it wasn't with big chunk plays. It was just really good execution. Situationally, you would have liked for them to have been better. But Oregon on third down defensively in this game was actually pretty darn good. Let me pull up the number real quick. Whoops, that's the Penn State game. Gosh, what a time that Penn State game was. Indiana was 5 of 14 on third down. That's not bad. It's not incredible. Indiana's was better. Oregon was 3 of 14, but Indiana was 0 of 1 on fourth down. So on the money downs, Oregon's defense held Indiana to 5 of 15 and 326 total yards. Like, that has to be enough. That has to be enough. But a couple of things that I'd like to see the defense clean up going into this game against Rutgers. Number one, the tackling. The tackling was pretty poor. So many moments in this game allowed Indiana to keep drives alive or get bigger plays than they should have, because Oregon just didn't tackle well, and it was just basic fundamental stuff. And a lot of times after a game like this, you'll hear players or coaches say, hey, go back to the basics, make it simple again. All right, Oregon tackling wise, particularly on the perimeter, get back to the basics. Go for a guy's legs or hip area and wrap up, because, man, Oregon tackled high a lot, and they missed some plays because of it. The worst one of the day came courtesy of Jerry Mixon, who did a couple of decent things in this game, but overall, Oregon's linebackers, as I talked about earlier this week, did not play very well. Indiana had second down and I believe it was 13 as they were driving in the third quarter, and they drop back to pass, and the running back runs in the flat, and Mixon just makes a really weak effort at a tackle in space. And it's not like he was one-on-one and had to, guess which way he was running. He was just trailing him to the sideline. And he was right there in position, and he just does not make a good tackle. Jaden Kennedy missed a couple of tackles as well. There were other examples. I don't mean to single out those two guys. Those were just moments that I had stand out to me during the game and stood out again on the rewatch. So that was definitely not something that I felt like Oregon did as well as they have for most of this season. Another thing, between the tackles, there are too many times where Oregon's linebackers are just getting run over. They're making the tackle, but they're allowing that extra yard or 2 or 3, and it sounds like something very small, but it's the difference between 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 5 or 6. And I think that comes down to just being in the right position and, frankly, being tougher, more physical than the other guy, having the right mentality. That's what that often comes down to. But there were several moments like that where it's like, man, I thought that was going to be a 2-yard gain. Why did he pick up 5? And that just allowed Indiana to just have these small these small plays continue to add up that led to their touchdown drives. But another thing that I'd like to see, and Oregon did get better with this in the second half after what happened in the first. So credit Tosh Lupoi and the players for executing. The rush lanes were not well disciplined at all times in the first half, and Oregon didn't properly account for the quarterback run. That led to a couple of conversions or good plays for the Hoosiers offense in this game. You think about Indiana's first touchdown drive had a quarterback scramble on 3rd down, and I mean, you just had Bear Alexander and Amari Washington both try to make outside pass rush moves, and it's wide open, and Mendoza makes the right read, which is what he's really good at the quarterback positions. He makes the right reads, and that's why Indiana's offense had as much success as they did. But again, I really felt like watching the game back, Oregon made him work for it, and Oregon's defense played well enough to win the football game, and the offense just wasn't able to respond. You were just going back to the well over and over and over again. I haven't said this stat on the show this week. Oregon's offense had 267 total yards in this game. That's astonishing. And part of that is something I'll talk about later. But got a couple of takes here for Spencer's scale of agreement about the defense. One about the defense, one about Oregon in general. Do you feel like Oregon's blitzes aren't very effective? 100%. It was evident to me watching in real time and on the rewatch that, man, Oregon is trying to disrupt Fernando Mendoza, and they're just not doing it. Indiana executed their blitzes way more effectively. The simulated pressures that Indiana brought were causing Dante Moore's head to spin, and they were getting home, disrupting his timing and throwing him off way more frequently in this game. Mendoza finished 20 of 31 for 215 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. It's not as if, I think because Oregon lost the game, you look up and it was by 10, you feel like Mendoza was just unbelievable. He was incredible, and he made some good throws in this game. Figured he would because he's got a great receiving core, and he's a good quarterback. But would you have taken that stat line before the game? Yeah, I would have too. Which goes back to what I said. The defense played well. They played well enough to win this football game. This is not another one of those, stat lines or storylines that feeds into the narrative. If Tosh Lupoi's defenses don't play well in big games, no, they played well enough to win. Offense just straight up did not. I did think that Oregon tried to bring pressure, and Indiana's offensive line and their pass protection unit as a whole, which is quarterback, offensive line, your tight ends, and your running back. All of those people combined with the offensive coordinator and position coaches, that's how pass protection gets orchestrated, and Indiana was really good. Oregon brought plenty of blitzes in this game, and they just didn't consistently get there. Mendoza was sacked once, and it was on a straight I think it was a 5-man blitz. I think Betcher came from the second level on a blitz, but Amari Washington just bull rushed a guy, and if he hadn't gotten there, then Mateo Uyunglele was getting held, but was going to get home anyway for the sack on 3rd down. That was early in the game. But after that, it did definitely feel to me like Oregon's blitzes just weren't nearly as effective. And that comes down to scheme and execution. Are you calling them at the right time? What protection's Indiana going to? Where do you need to bring pressure from? And Oregon just wasn't ready for it. Go make adjustments and be better going forward. Dana White's burner sends this one in. SSA, Oregon's about to go on the same fall off Penn State just went through, similar to 2021, winning at Ohio State and then falling off the rest of the season. I think this is more sent in the vein of like, hey, do you think this is possible? Not, oh my gosh, the sky's falling, everything's a disaster, horrible, no good, very bad. The fall off that Penn State went on, that would include losing this week at Rutgers. That would be comparable to Penn State losing the following week after losing to Oregon at the buzzer to UCLA. So, yeah, I have more faith in Dan Lanning and this staff than I do in James Franklin, who's, of course, not employed at this particular moment. So, the same fall off, that's a 1. That's a 1. I won't make it a 0 because you got to go like way overboard. Crazier things have happened than a team getting off to a 5-0 start, being ranked in the top 5, and then falling apart in the second half after one game. Yeah, I just don't see that happening. Oregon's track record after losing regular season games has been quite good. Think back to the Georgia game, got blown out, came back, rattled off 8 straight, all by double digits, including a ranked win at home in pretty convincing fashion. I think it was 38-7, the score against BYU. When they came to town, obviously the end of that 22 season had some poor moments, but yeah, I trust in Lanning. We trust. Let's put a little bit of faith back into Dan Lanning, the coaching staff. I understand the confidence might be a tad shaken after the game, but no, I put that at a 1. I don't think Oregon's fallen off. I still expect them to make the college football playoff. If they're going to do that, though, and prove me right, Dante Moore, oh boy. Saturday, I have more thoughts. More thoughts on Dante Moore from what he did on Saturday. First, this episode brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays are going to be here before you know it, which is exciting, but getting your home ready for guests and celebrations can feel like a lot. Maybe your serveware needs a refresh, or the guest room needs new bedding. Wayfair has everything you need to get your home holiday ready. From Christmas trees and wreaths to bedding, cookware, and outdoor inflatables, it's your one-stop shop for every room in the house. Wayfair makes it easy to personalize your home for the holidays with a huge selection for every style and budget. And with free and easy delivery, even on the big stuff, you can get everything you need without the hassle of huge delivery fees. You got to be prepared if you're bringing people over for the holidays. Wayfair is here to help you do just that. Get organized, refreshed, and ready for the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keeps you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next day delivery. Doesn't get any quicker than that. You talk about a game changer. That's what Supply House is here to give you. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, Nathan sends this one, and hey, Spence, remember Bo Nix's first game with Oregon? Yes, how can we forget, even though we try? We do try, but we fail to forget. As I recall, either during the game or post-game, Lanning told Nix, "We trust you," and the Bo Nix we now know and love rose from the ashes. Do you think Indiana was Dante Moore's "We trust you" game, where he gets the full backing of the coaching staff and goes off in a good way the rest of the season? Bo Nix style, have a great rest of your day, and go Ducks. Yeah, I think it has the opportunity to be, and it starts this week. That's not something that can begin, against Wisconsin or after the bye week or anything. If we're going to see that sort of run where Dante Moore takes the lessons he needs to learn from this game against Indiana and applies them, not just in his own head, but on the field for Oregon starting on Saturday, yeah, it begins this week. I do think that's really possible. I think it's different when it was the first game for Bo Nix after 3 years at Auburn, where he took a lot of flack and criticism from Auburn fans. And, there was a quote, I think, a while back on a game day episode from his mom or dad. I think it was his mom, Bo Nix's mom, who's also Tez Johnson's mom. Did you know they're related? Tez Johnson, his first touchdown over the weekend, and Jim Nantz uttered the immortal phrase that he and Bo Nix are related. It never goes away. It's so great. It's so great. Those guys are going to retire from the NFL. We're going to hear about it. It's awesome. Hilarious, I think is the correct word. Anyway, there was a quote from Bo Nix's mom saying how worried she was that because of how it ended at Auburn and plenty of Tigers fans wanting Bo Nix gone, didn't want him, thought he was a bust and all that negative stuff, that the first game going so poorly with Bo throwing 2 picks and 49-3, that Oregon fans would have that same sort of reaction. And she was really, heartwarmed and encouraged by how Oregon fans told Bo on the way out, hey, we still believe in you, man. Hey, we got your back. It'll be all right. Go Ducks. And, of course, it was. And he had an awesome career. So, yeah, that's what Dante Moore needs to do. But, I was critical of Dante Moore. Anybody who watched the game on Saturday was critical. I think Eric Skopel tweeted out the stat or mentioned somewhere that his PFF grade, and I am not someone that thinks PFF is the be-all, end-all, but like most stats, it's a starting point, not an end point. His PFF grade was the lowest in a single game for any Oregon quarterback since Anthony Brown against Utah in 2021. I don't remember which Utah game it was. Frankly, I don't care because both of those games were horrible. I was at the second one at the Pac-12 championship game when he threw the worst interception I have ever seen. Now, Dante Moore did a lot of things wrong in this game. This just came down to, and everything I talked about with him earlier this week just got confirmed with what I saw when I went back and watched the game again. Dante Moore was confused all day, and he kind of hunkered down into a check down mentality, which, contrary to what some might say about the Oregon offense, is not what it has been this season or really ever been. Yes, they use plenty of short and intermediate throws. However, the deep shots have been there. And the one touchdown the Oregon offense scored in this game was on one of those deep shots. But there were some plays. I want to talk about a couple in particular that just let me know Dante Moore was just in his head. He was in his head in this game. A guy who has looked unflappable and so good all season long, he got in his head. Playing quarterback's hard. You're going to face adversity. That happened in this spot. One play in particular, a third down in, I believe it was the third quarter. Dante Moore is standing in a perfectly clean pocket and has Gary Bryant wide open. He actually could throw the ball to 2 different spots. He's standing in the pocket. Gary Bryant is dragging across the field from the wide side to his right. He is wide open. There is also a wheel route from the running back where if he wants to float it, Sadiq has occupied the corner and the safety, and he could try to thread that ball as well. And he doesn't even give it a moment's thought. To not see that he is wide open for an easy first down. Easy first down. Instead, he bails out of the pocket to the right, tries to make a throw on the run, incomplete. Oregon kicks field goal. That moment when I went back and watched it a couple times made me go, man, he is not settled into this game. And going into this game against Rutgers, I think that's going to be something Will Stein is going to emphasize with the play calling early on, is settle him back down, get him into a rhythm. One thing that's been great about Dante Moore this season is the way he has read defenses. He has looked comfortable, calm, poised, cool, collected, all of those good words. He was none of that on Saturday. None of that. And when opportunities were there, he just wasn't looking in that direction, or he had a chance to pull the trigger a couple times and didn't. And another example was when Oregon was facing, they were down in the red area. He ended up, and I know it's easier for me to sit in this chair and talk about this sort of stuff. I'm just making the observations because he has been so good the rest of the season. Indiana brings pressure and is in a cover zero look. Both Kenyon Sadiq and Dante Moore are one-on-one down the field. He fails to diagnose that quickly and tries to hit Davison on the angle route, which he does, but there's a defender there who makes the play and holds Oregon to another field goal try. If he recognizes that he's got one-on-one, he can float that ball up and just go let Dante make a play, who absolutely cooks the corner to the inside, and there's a lot of space to throw the ball. Now, this all happens very quickly, of course, but if Dante, I just don't feel like those were the sorts of misreads or mistakes or conservative approaches that we were seeing from Dante Moore in the first few weeks of the year, because we weren't. You got to just tip your cap to Indiana's defensive staff. They did a lot of things really well. And I think in this spot, Dante Moore's got to go back to the film, study all of that, and I can guarantee you he has been all week, and we'll see what happens against Rutgers, who I don't think have as good of personnel as Indiana or as good of a staff. Still, though, there's something to be learned when you're making a cross-country trip and playing a conference game. So, we'll wrap up with a couple fun points here. Brian sent in a Spencer scale of agreement for James Franklin going to Oregon State. At James Franklin being a head coach at the Power 4 level, again, I'd put an 8.5 on that. I think James Franklin to UCLA would be interesting, but to the Beavs, the reasoning Brian used was, well, he wouldn't have big expectations, he could stay out of the limelight a bit. That's a 1.5 to me. I'd be interested if I were Oregon State, without question. You need a high floor head coach, but I don't think James Franklin would be interested there because he could do a lot better. This one came in from Bud. Which college football programs have the best cultures? The best ones. I know this is going to sound crazy to some of you, but Georgia's actually pretty high on the list. I think Kalen DeBoer has gotten things going a bit at Alabama. Indiana is clearly a very high culture program. We're going to learn if Oregon is a top 5 culture program right now with how they respond to this game, because Penn State obviously was bottom tier and it cost them. But if Oregon is not in that realm, and I don't believe they are, they should win big this week against Rutgers. So, more on that coming later this week. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.